Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Maria Gonçalves podcast. I'm your host, Maria Gonçalves, and today I have my special co host, Dana Louise, all the way from Australia, and a special guest, uh, Paul Bannister, all the way from Norfolk, UK. So, welcome, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Hiya.
Hi, Dana.
Oh, right.
There was a delay there, wasn't there?
There was a delay. I thought we covered in the introduction. Yeah, I'm
All
happy to
right.
be here and lovely to be chatting to you, Paul. We did have a brief connection a couple of years ago when you interviewed myself a couple of years ago, but it's lovely to reconnect.
It's
Yeah.
lovely to be here. I'm really excited.
I'm super excited both of you are here. So I'm just going to share with our audience a little bit about Paul. So Paul is an evidential medium. He is highly respected and an accomplished medium based in Norfolk, UK with over 20 years of experience. Paul has dedicated his life to bridging the physical and spiritual realms, offering comfort, guidance, and healing to countless individuals internationally. And for the past decade, Paul has demonstrated his remarkable work through public platform events and private one-to-one readings, providing profound insight and solace to those seeking a connection with loved ones in spirit. In addition to his work as a medium, Paul is a passionate teacher, helping others explore and develop their intuitive and spiritual abilities through development circles. Those are always fun. And Paul is also the host of Spiritual Talk TV, a popular podcast on YouTube at Spiritual Talk Live 9288, where he explores meaningful spiritual topics and connections with others on their path of self discovery and growth. And if you guys would like to reach out to Paul, his website is paulbannistermedium.co.uk. And at the end of the interview, I'm going to have all of those links for everybody to be able to reach out with you. So
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I'm super excited you're here. I
It's
have a
an
question for
absolute
you,
pleasure.
Paul. Sorry.
It's a, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
So I have a question because on your website, you talk about seeing, sensing spirit as a child and physical phenomena around you. So can you share a story about that?
Okay. So interestingly, this is I said to my partner tonight that this is how sad I am. Even in my downtime, I was watching a paranormal investigation show where they looked at both sides of the argument. Was it real? Was it someone's imagination? Or are these events real? I should really take some time off for myself and look at other things. But I had an experience from an age, I was an early age, from about the age of 7, 8 years old, where I had my first physical experience where both myself and a good friend of mine, we were a very similar age. We had somebody walking up the stairs, and it was quite comical because the cat went into what can only be described as like one of those things you see in the movies where it goes up on its heckles and it suddenly shot out the room. But it was a heavy foot of a man coming up the stairs, and there was nobody there. And as 8-year-olds in that presence, and you can feel the energy and the heaviness of it. We shot out of the house because I live next door to my friend, and it kind of went on from there. But little did I know, John's mum at the time was a medium, and she was sitting in circle. So there was lots of phenomena going on in the house itself. So as a child, I kind of grew up in an environment where I would spend a lot of time with my next door neighbor. We were very close friends, and we would experience lots of things. And honestly, I could be here all night explaining some of the stories that we saw. And there was also a fear factor to it because we kind of liked being scared as well because we didn't understand this. So that was my early experiences of it. So yeah.
Oh, wow. And then, like, you also have on your website that in your late 20s, you had a life-changing experience that created the shift within you. So, can you share what that experience was?
Yeah, so I had a brain tumor, and I was told I was going to be in a very bad way. Now, because of the type of tumor it wasn't cancerous, but it was a type of tumor that was going to cause a lot of damage, and it had to come out. And it was on the spine, in the back of the head here, and the tumor had grown on the spine, and the nerves had grown over the top of it. So when they went to cut the tumor away, it would break a lot of the nerves. So I wouldn't be able to drive, swallow, be able to talk, lots and lots of things. So I was not looking forward to this operation. So they gave me some time to contemplate my options. I had about 8 months, and it is a journey. But when I went into the operation, well, I had the operation, and I was supposed to wake up in intensive care, and they said you'll be in there for a few months, and we'll deal with your problems as you go through this. I woke up after 12 hours back in the ward, and I'll never forget, it was an Australian registrar, and his Australian accent saying, well, I'm not going to do the accent because it's a real insult. So I'm so sorry.
I'll go on, try, Paul.
I'll try. He said, well, that was amazing. And I'm like, well, I didn't feel
Not
amazing.
bad.
But he said, yeah, he said the tumor had crystallized.
Wow.
And it was a week afterwards, the actual surgeon came to see me, and he said he'd just come back from the Royal College of Surgeons, where he had presented my case as an unusual one because the tumor had crystallized and they'd never seen nothing like it. So
well, can I ask, sorry, that crystallize? I've never heard of a tumor crystallizing. Was there any treatment that you were on at the time, or there was just you contemplating for 8 months and expecting to have surgery to remove it?
So what happened? I didn't just fall into the fact I had a brain tumor, but then I kind of did. I had this ongoing ear infection, and the surgeon used to say, when I used to go back, I spent about 14 years going as an outpatient, going back to see them at Addenbrooke's in Cambridge. Big shout out to Addenbrooke's. And they would laugh. Please tell us the story. Tell the student, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're so lucky," because I had an ear infection that wouldn't go away, and that's all it was. And they scanned me, and when they scanned me, they found a very large tumor at the back of the head, which was nothing to do with the ear infection. And guess what? The ear infection went away as soon as they found the tumor. It's crazy, isn't it? So I had the tumor, and the reason why I say it's a life-changing event, it wasn't so much the operation itself, it was more the contemplation of the journey and psychologically how that's affected me after the journey. And I found very quickly that even now I get quite emotional because so many people go into that experience not recovering. They have, and here by the grace of God go we. But the journey for me was I had a second chance, and it made my life that whole lot sweeter. Now, I'm sorry to say this, guys, I'm probably going to lose you here. I used to coach a lot of football, and I've always said you can't understand winning until you lose. So it's a kind of concept, and my life has been completely changed by that concept. So, and when Spirit came calling about 18 months after the operation, because I recovered really quickly, within 3 months, I could have gone back to work. I went back to work within 6 months. And the doctors couldn't believe it. So I was very, very lucky indeed.
So no issues with speech or any ongoing issues from the surgery?
Well, no, touch wood. In 2010, I was signed off as an outpatient, and interestingly enough, I was watching one of those hospital documentaries, and they were talking about people that have operations on the brain. 99.9% of people will always remain an outpatient. And here was me sitting here thinking, oh my God, I didn't realize how special that is to be able to be signed off and be completely free of that. I have certain things like, which is a bit bizarre. When I eat my food, sometimes I'll have a tear come out my right eye. So, and that's the only thing really. And sometimes swallowing is a bit slow. But when you look at me, I lost a lot of nerve endings and feeling in the right side of my face, but I only feel that in the cold. It goes really numb. So, but that's it. You wouldn't look at me and go, this guy's had all sorts of issues. Yes, I have short hair. When I have it quite short at the back. You can see the scar. I completely forget about it. For me, it gave me another opportunity. So that's why I say it's a life-changing event, because it made me reevaluate my life. And also, to that point in my life, I still hadn't done what I wanted to do. So yeah.
So how do you think that experience, Paul, has affected your mediumship or the development of your mediumship?
Interesting, because I think, like, everybody has their own philosophy in life. I think my philosophy in life, because, okay, I'll let you into a little secret. I remember asking God, saying, I don't want to die yet. I'm not ready for this experience. And then after the operation, I remember completely forgetting about that conversation I had. And when we're all in dark moments, we have that conversation, don't we? You know,
Yes.
and I can't imagine, you know, everybody all around the world, people are going through these experiences every day. And here I am, I'm not anything special, but here I am asking for that. You know, I want to be able to live more. I want to be able to live my life more. And it felt selfish in a way, but there was things that I wanted to do. And I remember recovering, and I never forget asking, do you know what? I want to give something back. I want to be able to, and this was my conversation with my creator. And after about 2 or 3 months, everything happened mediumistically. So I didn't realize I was a medium growing up. Apparently, it turns out my nan was a medium. My mum never really divulged that. She used to see spirit a lot. And so it was in the family genes, so to speak. And yeah, so from that point on, it just kind of went on and on until I embraced it and started to work with it. Yeah. But in terms of how it's changed, given me a different philosophy, I I think it's not a simple answer, because yeah, I'm struggling to answer that question directly, because I think it's multifaceted. I don't think it's simplistic as one particular thing. I think it's layers of who I am. And one thing I do struggle with, if I'm honest, is when I first recovered, I struggled with the minutiae of life, the chores of life, because actually it put everything into perspective. And I sometimes struggle now, to be honest, because there's so much that life has to offer. It's just, yeah, I just find it really difficult to put that into one specific thing, but it's multifaceted. And I believe as a person, I'm better for it. But then I would say that, wouldn't I?
We agree, Paul.
Thank
You
you.
mentioned you're just going back to family and obviously, discovering mediumship, your potential with mediumship. You mentioned that your nan, you learnt later on, was a medium. Was that something that was not a secret in the family, or how was that not known? Or
This wasn't spoke about. So my mum and dad come from two different worlds. My dad was from London, and my mum, her family are all Scottish on both sides. So the Scottish they call it second sight. It's quite well known. And apparently my nan used to say things to my mum. She was an only child. But my mum never thought to mention it to me until after about 10 years of me developing. And she does make me laugh, because she said, oh, you're just like my mum, she said. And I thought, I've only been doing this 10 years and you've only just thought to tell me that. Yeah, but it's in the family, because my sister also, she had an experience recently where she came out of the house. She just bought a new house. There was about 15 or so houses built on a new plot. And she came out of the back garden. It was getting dusk at night, and she heard this rustling, and her garden backs onto a field. And there stood a Roman soldier. Wow. And there was me, like, she phoned me to tell me, and I said, well, did you talk to him? No, she ran in the house and locked the door. So, but she's had that gift as well. So there's two of us out of the three. There's two of us that have. Is it a gift? I mean, I personally believe it's a natural process within all of us, but I think it's whether we're meant to use it in this lifetime. So we can all connect but it on a, you know, depending on what we need it for, if that makes sense. That's my belief system anyway.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree. I absolutely agree with that. I find it interesting because, like, my background, I'm Portuguese. So, with my Portuguese family over there in Portugal, they don't believe in mediumship. They'll call it like an experience with a saint or you had a miracle. So I find it interesting with the words because I have an aunt who's in spirit, Aunt Maria, and I was named after her. And I'll hear stories about her seeing spirit, but they'll be like, oh, but she saw Virgin Mary. Oh, but she saw this. She saw this. They call it the saints. So it's like, but you do mediumship. So that's like, that's not so good because of what you can see. And I find that so interesting because of the words and the language, and too because of my culture and where I grew up. So Dana, like, what's it like for you in Australia, like being a medium or growing up with mediumistic abilities?
Uh, hmm. I grew up in a small country town, so it was just naturally we're in a house backing into the gold mines, and there'd been a gold rush there, so it was very impregnated, I guess, with that emotional charge because there was accidents, and there wasn't the medical care that we'd have, so there was lots of tragedies that would have happened on the gold mine. So as a young girl, quite sensitive, I had experiences, sensing and seeing and experiencing the spirit world. So, but I didn't, it wasn't out there. It was a bit like Paul. It was just no one in the family that we were kind of the strange family that it was just naturally in it. I think down the DNA, we'd sit around having cups of tea after dinner. We'd be placing playing cards to our head and say, guess the card. And that was just something we did with siblings. So it was kind of just a natural thing within the family. All my siblings had experiences. I think where our house was located was very charged. There's something connected to where our house is. If you take the divining rods around, and it's not just where the pipes are, there's something definitely there. But we were all open to the experience, and I think my mother in particular had experiences herself, and it was always open to the spirit world. So it wasn't something that was necessarily looked down upon or
Yeah.
even judged, really. So I was quite fortunate, Marie. I didn't have your experience. And Paul, I assume because you had that in your family, you were quite open to have those experiences and share them.
So,
Oh,
oh, yeah. So my father,
there was a shoulder shrug there.
there was, because
Oh,
interestingly, my dad was very I didn't realize at the time growing up with dad, he was very practical, down to earth man. But I didn't realize until I was adult, he had a lot of fear around it. And it turns
okay.
out when he himself became ill around 2007, he had some really unusual spiritual experiences, and he came to me, and I found that really difficult because he was really against what I was doing. He would talk about you don't know what you're dabbling with. He had this fear of God from somewhere, that you're dabbling with things. And I can I share this experience? So when I first started to connect, they say the right teacher comes in at the right time. And I found this wonderful man, Paul Bannister, who, and he said to understand working with spirit, he got me to do a spiritual healing course. It lasted about 3 years, but I really enjoyed my time working with that. But in and amongst that course, we had to work with what we call guinea pigs. And my dad asked, because he, bless him, he got diagnosed with polyarthritis, which is really quite bad. It's every joint of the body, and he, bless him, he was in a lot of pain. And I said to, look, Dad, how about trying some remote healing? Would you like to try it? And he was up for it. And it's quite comical because my family are very funny. They've got some real stories. Honestly, you could write a sitcom. And my dad, this is a problem when you do spiritual healing. Never ask someone how they feel afterwards. I got a phone call the next day, and Dad's like, "Oh, do you know what, son?" He said, "I'm so pleased. I've been able to run up and downstairs and do what I used to be able to do." I said, "Dad, that's great. If you need a top up in a few days, let me know, and I'd send you some more." And so there's my mum. You can picture the scene. A couple of days later, Mum and Dad are sitting there, and my dad's name was Sid, and it's an old London name, Sydney, and Barbara, my mum. My mum said, well, Sid, you know where that healing comes from, don't you? And he's like, Barbara, what are you talking about? Well, that healing comes all the way from God. And my dad said, got on the phone. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're dabbling in. And he shut it down. Do not send me any more. Okay. And then I thought, oh, I'll just send it to him anyway. And that was interesting because when I sent it, I literally felt a brick wall because it is free will. We have free will. It was really quite interesting, but it was his fear that stopped him from being able to accept it. But it was another year or so later on when he had his own near-death experience. And this is a guy that's really shut down, you know, everything has to be explained. And then he had an operation, and I got a phone call from mother the next day and said, you know, the operation went well, but dad's asked you to come over because he'd like to talk to you. But okay, so went to the hospital. This was 2008. And he said, look, I've had this experience. And my dad's trying to tell me this really spiritual experience in a very practical way, which is ever so funny. And he's trying to logically, you know, put it into his mind that it was just a dream. It wasn't real. Anyway, he said to me, because he'd had a vein moved from one leg to another to keep the circulation going so he wouldn't lose the leg. Now, in the operation, he said he woke up and there was nobody in the operating theatre. And he got off the bed. And again, because he had the arthritis, he was riddled with pain on a daily basis. And he said, Paul, I had no pain. And I walked around the theatre. I didn't want to go out of the theatre, but I was just looking for where everyone was. And then he said, all of a sudden in the corner of the operating theatre was a light. And this light became closer and closer and closer to me. He said, and all I can remember doing is putting my hands up and saying to it, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And he said, I woke up in recovery, and that was that. What do you think that was? He said. I said, well, Dad, I think you've had an opportunity that you could have gone over. You might have had difficulty in the operation. No, I think it was my imagination. And he left it at that. A week later, the surgeon came to see him and it said, Mr. Bannister, the operation did go well, but we can't do, because there was planning to do another one. We can't do another one now because you're really high risk. Unfortunately, in the operation, you bled out on the operating table and we lost you for 10 minutes. So it's like, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
And he changed. He actually bought me a book on mediumship. And that was his way of saying that was his way of saying, do you know, there might be something in this, you know, son. So he taught me a lot, but what he did teach me was not everything is mediumship, and some things can be explained, you know, try to be logical about it. But and what you said, Marie, there is and your Portuguese family, but there is something they're missing, because there is this magic and there is this miracle of communication. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the interpretation of it. It's interesting that the different lessons our parents bring us.
Absolutely. And then I have the Brazilian side of my family, and they're extremely spiritual. So I love having conversations with them, but I can't have those with my Portuguese Catholic side from Portugal, because they think I'm like dabbling in stuff I shouldn't be dabbling in, because they just don't get it. But then it's also the language, because if you go to a healer, because they will travel miles to some remote village and be like, oh, that person can do healing, but it's miracles from God. So I find it so fascinating, because it's all language at the end of the day.
It is. But then again, I believe that it is, that if we're all God, I mean, don't get me started on that aspect, but it is all God.
Yeah.
If everything is God, then it is God. I mean, don't get me started on that. We'll be turning ourselves inside out. But yeah. So they're kind of right in a way.
Yes.
It's trying to be accepting of people's views, and it's just where they're at in their mind.
Yeah, I just can't say the word mediumship to the Portuguese side of my family, but the Brazilian side, I could say it, and they're like, oh, wow, tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to ask, it's quite interesting because, you know, as you said, there wasn't necessarily that acceptance from your father with mediumship, but in your podcast, you've actually gone beyond just talking about mediumship. You're really deep diving into some really out there concepts or ideas. Is that just your nature, Paul, that you like to explore and understand all? How did that come about? Because you've got some really, I think that's that philosophical side to you, thinking all the time and processing and looking for the truth of something. So it's kind of like you're navigating experiences, other people's experiences, to work out where Paul sits with that.
That's a really good question. And again, it's my experience of mediumship has been a journey, and there's so much to mediumship. And it's interesting. I never really read the Bible, but I've started to read the Bible in certain areas of the Bible, because scriptures tell us there's different ways to read the Bible. There really is, and to perceive it. And it's interesting. There is actually, oh gosh, I can't think the scripture now. Well, they talk about mediumship within the Bible in a positive way. I think it's Corinthians.
I must admit that missed that chapter.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I'll have to dig it out, because I've got it somewhere where they're talking about it in a positive way, not in a negative way. But like you say, it can be perceived in a different way. But for me, there's so much life out there. So, the UAPs, is that life here? Was there life here before we got here? So I think we have to open our minds to the possibilities of being so much around us. We're not alone. So I know mediums that don't believe that the animal kingdom or pets don't come in with their owners. I've had experience where animals come in together with their owners. I've seen the dog, I've seen the owner, they come in together. I've actually seen it where the people that are receiving the message from their loved ones, they're more excited to receive it from the dog than the owner. You can send him back, but the dog's lovely. So there's so much out there, and I'm interested. Like, I've had military friends that have had experiences with UFOs. I've had, there's just so much to it. To go into it on just one question, we could be here all night on that very subject.
Well, I am very interested, Paul. You said you've had experiences, that personal experiences with UFOs?
Yeah, so
Care to share?
So again, I met a guy called Paul Bannister who taught me how to read auras, but become aware of so much more within the auric field. For instance, the astral field as well. Like, when I see people can hear spirit, I can see the astral around their ear, and the astral looks a bit like the night sky. Okay, it's the point of the body where when we pass, we go out through the astral layer of the auric field, which is just after the emotional body. The colors that we see, the astral, and we go into that a little bit when we dream or have out of body experiences. Okay, but you can see within people's energy and their chakras where people have had experiences. And I remember I was at a sanctuary for meditation, and I was stopped by this guy who had we'd done this meditation, and he came over to me and he said, "Listen, mate," he said, I think you can help me. He said, "I've been told, I've just got this message that you can help me." Absolute random, this guy. I'm like, okay, now this is where it gets, and I've struggled with this concept especially when it first happened to me. And when I hear people about alien abductions and all this kind of stuff, you think, it's too far out there. You have to be down to earth about some of this, and it has to be explained. And if you're picking up stuff and receiving things that there's more than this life, then it's interesting. But this gentleman, anyway, cut a long story short, he came to see me. And he said, "Look, is there something wrong with me?" And I thought, well, this is very interesting. So I kind of looked at his aura, and I became aware of something that was in his energy field. I was told it was breaking down. Okay. And I said to my guide, "Okay, what is this?" And he said he was tagged. Now, this is way before the concept of being tagged ever came out. And I said, "What do you mean being tagged?" And he said, "Well, just like you tag wildlife to see their movements and ideas of what they're getting. This guy's had something similar." And I'm like, hold on a sec. I can't, this guy's going to think I'm crazy. No, he'll understand. So at some point he maybe was aware of it or not aware of it, but he's had some kind of extraterrestrial interference, is what he put. Anyway, so I tell this guy, I got brave, and I told this guy what I picked up. And I was told that whatever his energy was in his energy field was breaking down and it was going away. And he went, I knew it, he said. And I'm like, okay, did you want to share? He used to work near where we live. There's a big battleground where they train the military all times of the night. They have big helicopters going over, no lights on, very brave, you know, low level over the tops of trees. This guy was driving home from work. It takes him 15 minutes to drive home. And it was about 5 years ago. We are going back to about 2000. Okay. And this guy said, all of a sudden, there was this noise. He thought it was a low flying helicopter. There was a bright light. His car stopped. It went over. The car started again. He went home. Got home, walked in the house. His wife said, and where do you think you've been? You know, the usual. Your dinner's in the dog. You've been well over an hour. It takes you 10 minutes to get home from work. And he's like, I've literally just driven home from work. Checked his watch has stopped, the car watch has stopped, everything, you know, completely freaked him out. But from that moment on, everything in his life broke down. So it was some kind of resonation. I don't know what it was. It was making him resonate at a different frequency. You know, when you're in a room and you meet someone, oh, I don't like their energy.
Yeah.
It was kind of doing that to him. So whether they studied his social interaction, you know, what we have with relationships, but everything broke down for him. They literally broke him. Children went away from him, didn't want to know. His wife left him. His parents died. This guy was in a mess. Why?
Is
Why
that,
would,
is that,
sorry, go on.
yeah. Is that something you come, I mean, you have so many varied guests and you obviously have conversations outside of the interview. Is this something that you're coming across more and more, people that have had experiences beyond this reality, almost like a time slip?
I think we have to be careful because reality is
Yes.
changing as well. They talk about, you know, some people are talking, and this is where it just seems everything's speeding up, and everyone's into conspiracy theories at the moment. Now, I interviewed a guy, Philippe. Hi, Philippe, if you're listening. And he was blind. I'll never forget having a conversation with him because a few days before we met for an interview, he said, I can't believe it. I've had a meditation, and all of a sudden this entity came in from the Galactic Federation. You know, and there's so many documented evidence of UAPs or UFOs. You know, the American or what do you call it, the Congress, they're trying to get them to come clean about what they know. And I know people that have been in the military that have had to sign the Official Secrets Act over things that have happened, but you know, word of mouth stories, these things get out there. I think it's always been there because it's been very well documented. I think we don't understand our reality. So I think we do live in some kind of multi-dimensional reality. So there's a possibility that we can travel interdimensionally, or other civilizations before us had that. You know, the whole Darwinian theory of evolution has now been absolutely destroyed because it's just not making sense. It doesn't fit together, you know, and a very prominent group of scientists came together, and evolutionary theorists to come together, and they in London in 2016 and poo-pooed that. I'm just trying to think of the scientist, Professor Stephen Mayer. He talks about this a lot on different interviews. So there is so much that we just don't understand. I think, do you know what we suffer from is limiting our consciousness to human, or our ideas to human concepts. You know, when you think about the Akashic Records. Now, the Akashic Records was created by Edgar Cayce, and Edgar Cayce was the first man or medium to talk about the concept of doing your soul life readings, going into the Akashic Records. He was the first known medium to bring that to the fore. But it was of a time. It was the turn of the 19th, 20th century. So it would fit with people, that human concept. But I believe what he was actually reading was the person's soul, connecting to soul, soul to soul, which psychic, the word psyche is Latin for soul anyway. So that would make sense. If you're connecting with someone's soul, you can, you know, you can connect with people's past lives through the human aura. There's energies within the human aura that, and people can discover that themselves through meditation. You know, people are having experiences, maybe say, if you was to sit 365 times in a year, then maybe you'll have 3 or 4 experiences where you see things that are actually from a past life origin. And you'll normally see things from a past life that are important to you and your purpose here now. So things that you need to clear, things that will help you move forward. You won't necessarily see all your lives. I know I've gone off on a tangent. I'm very aware, but it's
We love it about you, Paul.
Love it. Keep talking.
subject. You know, you talk about the Anunnaki. You know, there's so much knowledge with Zachariah Situ, who was able to look at the Sumerian tablets and decipher a lot of the language that was out there. You know, then there's also the Robert Temple Syrian mystery, which again, the French brothers, I can't remember the name of the French brothers in the Victorian times, lived with a Dugan tribe in Africa.
I
And
haven't heard this one, Paul. Very interesting.
oh yeah, check out Robert Temple, the Syrian. I've got the book somewhere. The book came out in the 70s, and Robert was guys, I'm quite old, but do you remember Arthur C. Clarke?
No.
Can't
No.
say I do.
So he was the guy that came out in the 70s and early 80s that started bringing out all these mysteries, the mysteries of Arthur C. Clarke. And it started to expand people's ideas of what was out there. Well, Robert Temple was an understudy to Arthur, and he brought this to him. And there's a couple of great interviews with Robert. I've tried to get him on the show. Trying to get his number is really difficult for some people, but he's one. But he's an amazing man. So basically, these French brothers lived with the Dugan tribe for about 5 years. And after a few years, the chiefs of the tribe took these French brothers into their confidence, and they took them to their ancestors in these caves. Now, incidentally, on these cave walls was pictures of spacemen coming from, and they actually mapped the star system where they came from, and it turned out to be Sirius. Now, apparently there was like a dog-star sun and 3 planets. Now, when Robert Temple got NASA to look in the 70s, there was only 2. So the whole thing was completely, you know, shut down. It was not real. It's just, you know, when the Hubble went up, and it was the Hubble telescope was surfacing, going around the Earth's atmosphere. Well, of course, they could see further deeper into space. They looked again, and guess what? There it was. Exactly how the Dugan tribe had described it on the cave walls. And it's interesting because Egyptian culture, or the seat of the Egyptian culture supposedly was the Dugan tribe, but they went from mud huts into civilization within 100 years. It was a really speedy process. So whether these Syrian or whoever they were that came to Earth helped us to evolve more, who knows? Maybe it's a part of evolution again. But this is the problem, because it can unsettle. We're coming out of times, the last couple of 100 years, where religion controlled society, fear controlled society. Now we're starting to be open to all these other concepts of what life really is, which is mind-blowing. You take away fear, you reveal the truth. So we've got some exciting times to come.
I think there's lots of secrets still buried, Paul, yet to be unearthed.
Absolutely.
About the beginning of man, and whether the powers that be will allow the people to have that knowledge is another thing. But that brings up something else as well, Paul. We've got artificial intelligence now creeping in. What do you foresee for that, and how it changes the human psyche and their understanding of the world around them?
Well, you could argue, is that not evolution itself? We could end up walking around with us, just our heads on this AI robot. You know, that's evolution, you know, living for hundreds of years. Who knows? I think AI, like everything that man has created, there's always going to be a good and bad. And I think it's really in the balance, especially as it becomes more and more intelligent, that it depends where mankind will take it. That I believe, I do have this strong faith that there is a plan, you know. So I try to especially in changing times. And funny enough, I was talking about this today. It's really important at this moment because there's so much change and it's happening so quickly. You know, it's good to stay in the love, in that, out of that fear-based reality and into that more loving, centered understanding of who we truly are, because we truly are loving beings. We truly come from that source, but we have the choice whether we want to be in one or the other. Yeah.
So staying grounded, Paul, you mentioned before about your meditation practice. How has that helped your mediumship as such?
So now the problem is with meditation, and this again is a massive subject, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Meditation is simply mindfulness, and I think we've adapted it into many different ways. There's also a hypnosis element to meditation as well, which is important. I think is really quite good because it gives us another aspect of understanding self. But simple mindfulness is, you know, I always think if you're someone who struggles with meditation, keep it simple. Just count down from 100 and your mind will wander. It will go to Tesco's, it will go to the local supermarket. I must get the potatoes, I must buy the chips, but then bring it back. Like, you know, when you tell a naughty child off that's about 4 years old, go and sit on the naughty step. So every time you sit down, your conscious mind will try to give you a reason not to make the time of the day to sit for yourself. Oh yeah, I'll do that in a minute, and then you'll end up you're being deregulated. You're not in, you know, you're not in that flow of sitting at the same time every day. There's always an excuse not to do something. They're your own internal conscious mind battles. But once you get through that and you train your conscious mind that you want to sit at least for 10 minutes, that's the beginning. Yes, you can do other practices like doing the garden, of course, being spiritual in terms of connecting with Mother Nature, and also being of service in other ways is a really can be a meditative practice. But for me, if you can give yourself time to meditate, you are investing in yourself. And that's where the magic happens, because there is a self-healing process in that journey. The meditation itself can be, just from a physical point of view, very well, it's, you know, it's great for your health, but also the mind. It helps you to unlock what's going in the mind and the magic that's going on in it. Well, between these ears, my teacher used to say there's not a lot going on, but there is so much going on in our minds, and it's good to be that we can focus. And if we can focus our minds, we can connect to the spirit world so much better. It's not easy, and it's okay when you get it wrong. Do you know, I learned something recently about the word sin. Did you know where it come from?
No.
So the word sin comes from, it's an ancient Greek term for archery, for missing the target.
Oh, yes, I have heard that. Sorry, yes.
So therefore, when we get it wrong, you know, when we do things wrong, we're not this bad person because we're wrong. We've actually got it wrong, and we just need to try again. That's all it is. When you look at it in that way, it takes all that pain away, all that, you know. Anyway, that's another story. But meditation is really important if you want to develop. But don't worry if you struggle. That's all I would say, because there's other opportunities to be mindful.
I am curious, Paul, did you study meditation in depth, or was it weaved within your mediumship?
A lot of it was through my own process. A lot of it was with, like I said, Paul Bannister started me on my journey. It was certain types of meditation. For example, I found also if I'm going to work mediumistically, I would not do a meditation. So if I'm doing or teaching a circle, some guys, they want to do a meditation before their work. No, I'll do an attunement, because if you go too deep, you go past them. So you have to kind of stay up and focus to connect to spirit. So too many people go into a deep meditation when they go really, really deep, and it's not conclusive or conducive for mediumship. So I did a demonstration on Saturday night to an audience, and on the way, I just listened to beautiful music and just get into that space. I tried to get heart-centered, and it always works for me. Always works. If you can get heart-centered. But, you know, no disrespect. The kids might be upset at school. There might be a problem at home. You know, the pipe is broken in the kitchen. You'll have all those normal stresses. But if you can park that as well, it would really help. Even if it's just for 10 minutes a day, it will really help you.
That is
Just
so
going back to that demonstration that you were talking about, Paul, and you're still obviously doing public demonstrations quite regularly.
Yeah.
You mentioned once before that before you go to do a public demonstration, that you literally lose your words, that it becomes hazy and we know with mediumship that it evolves and it changes for us. Is that still occurring for you, Paul?
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I'm going to say this. I'm so sorry, guys. I think I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I'm a Virgo, right? I like things to be in control, and I need to let go because I know there's another level to my mediumship. And recently I've been touching on the physical more with physical mediumship, where I've been going so deep, I'm not aware of who I am or where I am. Now,
Right.
I don't know whether I've created this aspect, because I used to say, if you want me to come and speak through me, I need to be out of it, because my mind is just so nosy. I want to hear what's being said. So, and it's interesting, and I'm working with a gentleman that has so much experience with physical, and has been around in the days when there was really good physical mediumship, and I'm starting to have those experiences. So I think yes, but there is also, with mediumship, there is always a blending. So there's always a physical aspect. Like yesterday, this lady in this circle I was teaching, she went, "Oh yeah, your mum is making me feel like this," and she was talking about something else. I'm like, "Hold on, what are you doing with your hand?" "Oh, I don't know." "Well, mum had a problem with swallowing. Mum couldn't speak. She had a problem." And then she went, "I don't know, but I keep getting this pain here." I was like, "Well, external evidence." Because of that blending, you've got the external and the internal evidence. It's all there. It's all a part of the process of mediumship, that physical blending. And sometimes I think we just go to what we're receiving. So I hear sometimes, I'm very blessed. I keep touch wood. I'm very blessed to hear. It's not always like a conversation I'm having with you. For example, my first contact that I had, the first person that came in on the demonstration on Saturday, he was a lovely man. I knew he was granddad. I knew his name was John because he told me. And then he starts singing "It's a Long Way to Tipperary." And then he's singing "Oh Daisy," you know, the one where "you give me your answer do." And then he suddenly went, "Yeah, but she won't give you an answer. She'll make him wait for 10 years before she says yes." And that's exactly what happens. So they can give you a story. And then, but then there was two ladies taking the same thing. And I just went back to him and said, like, "Come on, you've got two people here. Who is this for?" And then he came back and he just said something specific. In Norfolk, there's a company called Hughes TV and Audio. And he just said, "Thank her for sorting out Hughes TV and Audio. It was a relief for me," because he got into so much problems with them. And it was that clincher evidence that I knew exactly who I was going to. So yeah, so it's a process, is what I'm trying to say. It's a process. So the blending is a part of that, and my mind does go, and because I talk a lot, as you might know, I talk a lot, as you might have picked up.
So do
Yeah,
we.
I'm sorry, guys. I will let you get a word in edgeways in a
You're
minute.
in good company.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, because he was, for me, it's a process, and I just think, because I suddenly become aware of spirit, they like, sometimes they'll just tell me to shut up. Stop talking now. We're here, and it's I don't mind that, because that's my personality. You know, they will make you laugh. They will lift your mood, which I absolutely love. Yeah, so I still get it.
So, what would you say would be your favorite, Paul? I mean, podcasts, healing, mediumship, there's lots of feathers to your cap, so to speak. Where's your joy?
Okay, so so much, right? Because I think it's more the healing part of everything. So, like, for example, there was a lady, one of my group members, Jean. Hi, Jean, if you're listening. Honestly, amazing lady, beautiful soul. And do you know, I was just so happy. She didn't go, I've got your mum here. She lived at 54s, you know. Anyway, she didn't. She just said, I've got mum here. And then all you could feel was you could feel the presence of spirit. That gives me great joy, because I know she's a great medium. She probably doesn't realize it as much, but she has such a beautiful soul, and she's brought for me the Holy Grail, because that lady's the recipient sat there and she could feel her mum's love. Oh my God. To me, that's the buzz, you know, that communication and that affirmation that this is real, that we are everlasting, that there is something so much more to this reality. So that's my buzz. I just love what I do, basically.
As we are coming close to an end, so we have a
Wow.
few more minutes left. My question to you is, people new on this journey, what would you recommend for them?
I think it's really important to get a strong foundation for you to grow from. There's like, again, I would recommend a book by Paul Bannister called Auras and Colors, where he talks about his own life experience at the beginning, but he brings through some really practical exercises. I also would look to meditation. There, you know, there is so many people out there on TikTok, on all different platforms, saying so many different things. Remember, you are unique. How you work will be how you work, and don't let anyone else take you off that journey. And a very famous medium called Mavis Patilla, I heard an interview with her, and she said, and she was very gifted, and she said she went along to the college in Stansted, and she started to work how her teacher was teaching her, becoming, and then she felt she'd missed something. Well, she had, because she was trying to copy what everyone else was doing. So I would say to you, keep a journal, build up that internal, you know, symbolism, or an understanding how you work, because spirit will work with you in your own unique way to find that. And remember, it's a journey. It's not a race. Enjoy the journey. Okay, and be kind to yourself. Don't expect things and the more you're open, the more you'll receive. So, and have that well, it's difficult to put it into one short frame, really, into one little box, but just remember you're unique and you are who you are, and don't let anyone change that.
Oh, I love that, because people need to hear that, because I find even within my own mediumship journey, and when you're doing progressives and you're in circles, I don't know if it's a competition or if it's us being so hard on ourselves and be like, well, look at
Absolutely.
them, they're so much better. Why ain't I there? And it's like, no, 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 just be you, love you.
The
Yes.
Absolutely, and just watch out for the egos. There's a lot of egos out there, and so if you can come into this for the right reasons, you know, it started for me because I wanted to give something back. I wanted to be of service. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I have found there is a ministry, if you like, of God. There is the angels. There is all sorts going on around us, and I have a really strong faith in the Creator. And if your motivation is to be of service, you will absolutely fly. And it doesn't matter. We're all the same, whether you've been a tutor at the college, at the Alpha Friendly College, or whether you're a simple medium who sits at home and reads the tea leaves for someone to help them. We are all the same, because we're all a part of the same human family. So never let yourself be judged by others. As simple as that.
Beautiful words, Paul. Can I just ask quickly, Paul? I know we're running out of time, but I am curious because we're always learning, we're always evolving. Where to next for Paul? Is there an area of further study, or because we continue to learn even when we've reached a certain level, we never stop learning. Is
Yeah.
there somewhere you're going to deep dive into? Where are you bungee jumping into, Paul?
Well, do you know what? The problem is, the trick is not to be jack of all trades. But I find myself wanting in this desire to be all things. I want to be able to create something that that we can get. I want to leave some kind of legacy, which is why the podcast is important to me. And that's been an evolving process, because I'm not someone to sit in front of the camera and do this kind of stuff. I never believed I would do this. But I think it's important to talk to people, understand the process of mediumship. So for me, building a podcast and leaving a bit of a legacy where people can go in, because it's all free, look at it as a library. I know people that use it as kind of like a library for developing mediums, and that's important. But for me, I don't know. I don't honestly know where I'm going next. I know I'm going towards physical mediumship. But yeah, teaching as well. I was told recently I'm going to be doing more teaching. That's a passion of mine, because I have fun when I teach. I'm not someone I'm strict to a point, but I'm not strict. It's important to laugh and remember that Spirit wants to bring that love through, because, you know, when we're down in the mouth, what brings us up? That loving energy, that laughter, you know. We all have those fond memories of the comedians that we remember watching growing up and perking us up when we're children. Same as we're adults, you know, we've all got our favorite comedians. Bring that love into your heart center. And sometimes we can get a little bit too staid in mediumship. We can become a little bit too rigid, and you must do this and you must do that. In my understanding, God is love. And you know, let's not go there. I've actually got a podcast coming out on the subject of God. So that's by an ex-minister, so that'll be really interesting. But yeah, for me, yeah, who knows? I'm enjoying my life at the moment. I'm quite happy going along, doing what I'm doing, and let's see where it goes.
Oh, I love that. So we have reached the end of our time. I want to say thank you so much, Paul, for being our guest today.
Pleasure.
And thank you, Dana, for being our co-host today. And I will
Happy to
have
be
all
here.
those links so people can find Paul's podcast, find his website if you want to train with him, learn about meditation. Everything's going to be on the YouTube video and on the podcast. So thank you so much, everybody, for being with us today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.